And we are back with another episode of For All We Know. This one, I have a music episode and I have a PR episode, and those are really, really close to my heart, right? And this one is the PR episode because, everybody has their side gigs, but they have their 9 to 5, and my 9 to 5 is PR, right? So it's a little different. It's kind of like it's broadcast PR, which is a niche in itself, but I wanted to bring PR professionals and journalists together because it's important that, one, they network, and two, because everybody's in the same space at the same time. And it's really dope that I was able to do that with my next guest. So, starting to my right, we got the homie Oak. He writes for Essence, Thrillist, and what was the other one?
Creative Loafing.
Creative Loafing.
Yes, sir.
We have Sly over here. I love that name, man. We got Sly, who is, do you want to make the announcement? Do you want to go ahead? Who are you working for now?
So I am the new evening news editor at Revolt.
I'm just going to let that just sit there real quick.
Oh,
That's dope, man. That's dope. Right. And we have Brianna, and she's with Dare PR, and she's handling these artists out here, doing her thing. And I appreciate y'all for coming with me because, like, with this particular episode, I feel like we can't, like, PR and journalists can't exist without each other in a sense, Right. So I think it's really dope that we had the opportunity to do this. I kind of want to see where you guys started, like where did it all start? Where did you decide that you wanted to do this full-time, part-time, as a hobby? When did that start? Let's start with you.
Okay. So I've been writing since I was a kid. And, I have to give a shout out to my second grade teacher, Mrs. Simmons. We're still close today, but she told my parents and was like, yo, this little girl, she be writing. And, I never thought that I could grow up and make money from writing. It was just a hobby. So really there, having people like Mrs. Simmons plant that seed, and then going through college and landing in hard news, at a local news station, and realizing I'm not cut out for local news because it was cookie cutter. It was oh, you have to look like this, you have to talk like this. Yeah. And me walking away from that and people being oh, I thought this was your dream. And I'm nah, if I can't be myself, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And so I would say since I moved to Atlanta in 2019, I've been writing professionally, so to speak, but I've been writing for a while.
That's what's up, man. Brianna, PR is another animal we'll get into later, but how did you start that?
Kind of similar. I've always been very talkative, very outgoing, very just not gonna shut up at all. Been told that since I was little. It's you talk too much, and I never really cared. I'm gonna always be a talker. So I started to use it to my advantage. I meet people everywhere. I've never been shy. I will talk to literally anybody when I'm out. So I started to realize that I was really good at building those relationships, really good at keeping those relationships, and then I just started to use them to benefit me. In college, I studied mass communications, which basically is 3 majors in one: online journalism, audio and video, and public relations. But I chose PR to be my concentration because I realized I was really good at helping businesses build relationships with the people around them.
The branding, man, and the reason why I say it's such an animal is because not only are you dealing with the writing, but you're dealing with so many different personalities on a day-to-day basis, and you got to be ready for anything, especially a crisis. But like I said, we'll get into that in a minute. Oak, my man Oak over here, with the Essence gig. How'd you start? Where did it start for you?
So for me, I've never been like a big talker, but I can express myself well with like writing and everything. So I went to college to go to law school because I enjoy writing and everything. But as I kind of started taking courses, I realized I didn't really want to do that. But I liked writing still. When I moved back to New Orleans, I linked up with one of my homegirls who's a DJ. She had a radio station she was running, so I started writing for them. Okay. And that kind of like put me in a trajectory, writing fast. And so. Okay.
And it's just been going on ever since.
Mm-hmm. I just really started getting paid for it maybe like a year and a half ago. But, it's just why I kind of tell all my friends, like, I was doing this for free for like 7-8 years, just because like off the strength, off the strength of me loving it, Right. So, and after a little while, I started getting paid for it. So now, all the hard work paid off. But,
that's what's up.
Yeah.
I kind of want to start with y'all, and I swear I didn't do this on purpose, like journalists over here, the PR over here. I swear I didn't do
beef.
But what makes you open a pitch? Or like, I know you guys probably have some reign to kind of like, call the shots like, okay, I want to do this, I want to do this, or it's a sign, but what makes you really like open a pitch and be like, okay, this is a good story, I want to go with this?
I mean, I could. So it's kind of, and shout out to actually PR people too, as of recent, but a lot of times I'll kind of, like if I see something on the news or something going on music-wise or, hate talking about this now, but like the Will Smith thing, a lot of stories came out of that, and then a lot of times too, PR people might email me things like I have this, woman that's doing this, and she, might give me a story too, so it's kind of, both ways, but a lot of times it's just something I may be interested in that I might see on television or something that I might read, and that'll spark a story in my head. So
does social media kind of ruin? Social media is so fast these days that like I don't know if like people wait for the story like for an article, or is it difficult because the news comes out so quickly? Is it difficult to write on something like the Will Smith or?
I don't think it's like difficult per se, but the way I approach my stories is like, what is happening that like everyone isn't talking about, So like for me, for instance, with pitches like from publicists, and like shout out to Black publicists specifically, because I truly like I've like built relationships with so many Black publicists that like come through in the clutch like all the time, and I just think like, hey, like, do you know like my beat? Like, so that's something I've been like very cognizant of. Because like starting out, I was like, oh, like I just want to make everybody happy. Right. I just want to respond to everybody. Yeah. But then it's like some people, it's like I don't even write about this. Like, so I don't understand people why.
Research,
like, so I like when they've like done a research or can call out something that they've liked about my storytelling, that's like awesome. But like for me, I'm looking for like angles that not everybody else is like telling. Like, so with the Will Smith situation, it's like I was on vacation, thank God. And so coming back from vacation and having people like ask me, I'm like, everybody has written everything there is to know about it. I have nothing to say, you know, so.
There was small little like things like I think they dove into like his mental health, and so like people took they take their little angles, and they'll even bring in a psychologist and like he's dealing with. I get it, but it's also tough. I see it as very tough to get a story out before the internet sees it, because man, we live in a very fast time, and also it's interesting how people begin to like turn to journalists more for more of the facts. That's what I do. Like if there's a story, there's a lot of hearsay, but you want to like if I'll go to Oak's article, I'm like, oh, okay, now I see the full breakdown of everything that happened, or I see the full breakdown of why this, where it stemmed from, or something like that. But yeah, it's important. Now, also on the artist side of things, you deal with a lot of hip hop artists. Whew, that's tough in itself. I commend you. But how do you as a PR like professional get ahead of stories, essentially get ahead of stories, because that's kind of what you have to do sometimes, like some type of damage control.
Yeah, sometimes it's kind of hard to get ahead of it, especially if I'm finding out through social media, which usually that's how it happens. I always find out when everybody else finds out. The best way I deal with it is to make sure we are on the same page. A lot of times I feel like the artists and the publicists aren't on the same page as to where we want to take this story, because now it's out there. We can't really create the story, but we can just like create the narrative, create where it's going to go instead of how it's been done. Yeah. So if you've already done the damage, now we have to work on fixing it, because we can't undo what you've already done. So definitely for us to make sure we're on the same page. I can't tell you we do something and then you go and decide you want to get on Instagram Live, which never helps anything right after you've already done something that's probably not going to end too well.
I feel like it's harder for PR like these days because of social media.
Absolutely.
Man, like you can, because you can't be with that person 24/7, and it's really difficult to like you said, get ahead of a story before somebody go on live for 5 seconds and say, "Oh, I love Donald Trump."
Or they always want to clear it up, and that's not always the best reaction at first, to just jump on live and clear up what you've already done. Like, that's why you pay me, so we can think of a strategic plan to clear it up instead of you just saying what you want to say.
Have you ever had that, like, where somebody accidentally said something and they tried to like either clear it up, or they're looking at you like, "Look, I accidentally said something"? Like, do you have any scenarios like that?
Absolutely. I have an artist who had a show where there were gunshots and someone unfortunately did get hurt.
Oh, wow.
So the first thing that don't say anything. That's always my first thing to tell the artist, don't say anything until we figure out what's going on. That person's family, a lot of times we're quick to go on social media and the family doesn't know what happened, or people who should know what's going on doesn't know until you get on live. Of course, the artist didn't listen and they wanted to clear their name and got on live the very next morning to explain what happened, which made it worse because a lot of people weren't even aware of what happened.
Ooh, that's tough, man. And unfortunately, in hip hop culture, that kind of stuff happens more often than it should. So it kind of goes back to the I don't want to bring it up, but the Travis Scott thing and how he, it happened. And I think I remember seeing the video of him apologizing a little bit, but because we live in such a time where everything is perception, I saw a lot of people say, "Oh, he wasn't sincere enough," or like, "Oh, he did that interview too soon," or something like that. And when things like that happen, I guess for y'all, if you were in a scenario where an artist has something happen and you have a chance to have the interview, do you take that opportunity to, because that's kind of like where the moral ethics come into play. Do you take the opportunity to let them have their chance to talk about it, or like kind of pin them in a corner? Because that Charlemagne one, I don't know what the goal was.
Yeah, and I like Charlemagne too, but it wasn't a good look.
Yeah.
I felt as though it wasn't a good look, but
that's a tough situation to be in, man.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, like, you guys, because you both have interviewed a lot of celebrities, do they give you topics for like, "Hey, we're gonna stay away from this one"? And a lot of times, you'll have the, you really want to say it because it'll make, you could blow up off of that. But I know it's tough. You don't have to say names, but was there like any instances where that happened to you, where it's like it would blow up? I think, I don't know. You have any hope?
Nah, cause for me, like, if I'm gonna blow up, I want it to be for the right reasons. So it's I'm not the type of person that would just try to get clickbait or, a crazy story and all that stuff. Because I know I might blow up off it, but my reputation is everything. And I feel like I wouldn't be happy with, how I got to that point if I was, doing it like that. I worked too hard to be one way to just switch it up and then, you know.
That's true. So. You feel the same way, Shanique?
No, same. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I got like a
little
nervous spell. But literally same. It's like, I don't want, and it's not COVID, y'all.
It's all good. It's a real show. We can stop for a minute if you need to. You good?
No, I'm good, yeah. But same, it's like, I don't ever want, again, like that clickbaity type situation. And it's like, I've had the opportunity to like go that route, but it's like, I've worked so hard for so many years to get to this point, and it's like, why would I want to lose my integrity now? Why would I want to go with like quote unquote what's hot?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I just never want to give up my voice or like give up my gift to like just go with what everybody else is doing.
Yeah. And man, it's really tough because I know also in the hip hop space, you have to, you know, some journalists don't have the ethics that these two have, and they want to go for that story. How do you, one of my favorite things about PR is media training, because,
yeah,
some of them, how do you prepare artists for, you know, these interviews where something like that comes up? Do you have to have a mock interview? Like, what do you do?
So for me personally, I haven't worked with a journalist or an interviewer who I didn't already know. So we kind of had a relationship to where I was comfortable with them interviewing the client. Like, I know they're not gonna go off topic, but I do do rerouting training where I would just help them to reroute the conversation back to what we originally came to talk about. Because you will get those that will say, well, speaking of that, you know, what happened with this, and that's not what we've came to talk about. So I often help them to learn to reroute the conversation back to what we were talking about.
That's why I love media training. Go for it.
So I got a question for you, actually. So in terms of, you know how a lot of people now blow up because of their personality or their transparent, you know, like Cardi B, something like that. How do you know to, I guess, if a person may be off the cuff and that's the reason why the public likes them, how do you know to not change them too much, whereas though they may not, they kind of lose themselves a little bit? Or like, how do you know how to keep that balance between a person that's super transparent, that's why people love them, but you don't want them to be so transparent where they say something dumb and get canceled, quote unquote? You know, how do you?
That's tough, man.
Yeah, how do you do that?
It is tough. There's really no way for me to control that. It's all about the artist. Like, when I do my consults, I'm asking, what is your story? What do you want your brand to be? What do you want people to look at you as? And if they are, you know, comfortable with the brand that they're building, like if they have a very elaborate personality, I'm not going to change that. If that's what you want to bring off, then it'll be my job to expand on that. It'll be my job to push that narrative instead of trying to change it. So I basically just let them tell me what story they're trying to tell, and then I help to tell it.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta, that's funny because sometimes you gotta reel them back, but then you gotta know, like, okay, this could help them or this could hurt them. Because I've seen, you know, just speaking about artists, I've seen artists where they make great music, but their persona is not where it needs to be, and nobody want to touch them. You know, I also did like a little corresponding back in the day too, and it's not back in the day, like I'm old, but it's like it's really like you'll have a rapper that has really, really good music, but then just the media presence isn't there. The brand, like how you just come off, is just like, oh, and you want to help them, you know, because it's important to the culture, but it's just like, you can't do this, man. You can't continue to have your brand look like this, because what a lot of artists don't know is, or don't realize, is that you are a walking business, you know, and you are so, your people are employed by you, like, you know, like you have an artist and you do PR for them, the manager, and booking, all that stuff. So they got to really be intentional about how they move. But I kind of touched on it because I gave you guys like the, you know, your accolades or whatever in the beginning. but what were like the first wins that y'all saw? Like that really was like, okay, this is it. Like the small win, big win, whatever, like it's really important to have, I always say, small victories matter. And it's really important to have those. But what was the one where it's just like, okay, this particular moment was important enough to keep me going? Who would take it?
I can start.
Go for it.
So for me, it was like, honestly, like having people read my stories. Like, I can remember the first story I wrote. Again, I didn't get paid for it. I just was writing. And it was like a response to the Get Out, like Jordan Peele's Get Out.
Okay.
And like having people like read and comment and say things, I was like, whoa, like you guys are actually reading what I wrote, like, and you're receptive to it. That was a big win for me. And another one is like when people are like, yo, I've been following your work for a minute and I'm inspired by you. Like, that's huge for me too, because it's like, it's cool being able to like interview celebrities and people that I've like looked up to and admire. But like now at this stage in life, it's even more important to know that like, because I come from a small town, like, so for me to know like another little black girl is like, yo, I've been watching your journey and it's like, I know I can do that. That is like a huge win. It makes me like feel like, okay, the work that I'm doing isn't in vain.
Yeah, and it's impactful. And DMX used to say, and I said this
DMX.
on, right? I said this on another episode. He used to say, if I could touch one person, that's it. That's all you need is to touch one person. And because, you know, we are now in a community where, you know, we're trying to bring black people together more, get them in the rooms more, like, you know, black men, black women. Like, I work in a field where it's predominantly white, right? And more so than that, it's predominantly white women. When I tell you, I might creep some of them out, but when I tell you I get so excited when I see like another black professional in the niche that I'm in, like I instantly like follow on LinkedIn, like we gotta stay together because it's tough. It's really, really tough and representation matters. Brianna, what was that moment for you?
Honestly, it's a small win, but to me, it was large. I was actually still interning, and my boss needed a contact for a magazine, and I just so happened to have went to school with someone who wrote for that magazine.
Nice.
She was stressed for weeks, but she was the type of boss, like, if she couldn't handle it, she wouldn't tell us that she couldn't handle it. So I finally asked her, I'm like, what's going on? You've been really busy, really upset all week. She's like, well, I need a contact for this person. The person that I had no longer works there. And I just so happened to have went to school with the girl who wrote for the magazine.
Okay. And you came through.
Yeah.
Reliability is
those
a big,
connections.
big thing, man. And that's why you cannot blow your connections. You gotta. I have a quick story, and then I'm gonna go to you, because I got a quick story on how this actually happened to me. I worked for like a promo group, and I had an opportunity. It was kind of shaky, but I had an opportunity to go with I started working with like a producer, right? And I had the opportunity to like really get in there, really get my foot in the door, like do some PR stuff, right? And the person I was working with, he just was not, he was feeling himself a lot. He actually went to the Revolt thing and he was feeling himself, came back, was doing meetings with sunglasses on, like, dog, who are you? And I left. I ended up leaving that promo group and I went to this really big producer to try to get a job. And I don't know, some way, shape, or form through the grapevine, he heard that I was going to do that interview. And that person, I guess, reached out to them. And this dude completely trashed my name. And I always say if I saw this dude, it was on site. But but it's so important to have those relationships and have those, you know, be reliable. And sometimes, even still, people are not going to do you right. But, you know, that's kind of where your integrity comes into play. But yeah, that's a very key win for you. because that person was like, okay, now I could go to her for all kinds of stuff. But what was that win for you?
So I'm corny, y'all. I'm corny and I'm old too. Cause I be on like Facebook and Twitter sometimes too, and I just think it's cool when like and it be conversations not even involving me, but my friends might put up a movie that came out and it'd be like, well, I'm gonna wait till Oak write about it, cause I do film and all that. And then they'll be like, well, I'm gonna wait till Oak write about it, or if somebody's announcing their album. And be like, Oak, are you writing about that? Like, I think it's cool when my friends hit me up and, stuff like that. Like, that's, for me, I like that, I have the support of my friends and my family that's kind of checking for me. I just think that's cool.
That's really dope. When somebody says, oh, yeah, I seen you be doing X, Y, Z. It's just like, you read that? Okay, cool. I like that. But, it's really important to have those kinds of small wins because I feel like small wins get you... it's like little energizers, to get you to your big goal. But unfortunately, with those wins, sometimes comes the hard to deal with situations. So we have to touch on that. One of the hardest things to deal with in PR, and I'm sure in journalism too, is those tough situations where you have a client or you have an interview that is not going your way, to put it lightly. Brianna, I have to go to you because I've had instances like this with clients before. What do you do with those hard, difficult clients? How do you handle whether it's a situation that you experience, the artist is an experience in themselves, what do you deal with?
So as far as dealing with them, honestly, just being transparent, I don't.
Okay.
If you're too difficult to work with and it's costing my peace or you're very disruptive, I'm just not going to work with you. I often get clients who want to be at a place that they're not, and we're all, still trying to get to a place where we'd like to be, and I feel like I take accountability for where I am or what I could be doing differently, and I have a lot of artists that don't like to do that. They're like, well, I feel like I should be on this platform, when you haven't been putting in the work. I don't have anything to pitch to that platform. That's one of the main things. And the second one is rushing the process. You have to trust the process. You don't hire a publicist for a month and then expect for your entire career to turn around. It takes time to build your brand, to pitch you, to tell your story. It's not a 30-day process.
I kind of want to stay on that. Is it difficult explaining to people, hey, this is what PR is? A lot of people don't know what PR is.
Absolutely.
How do you even begin that conversation?
I love to start with examples because sometimes people just need an example of what it is that I'm going to do. So I'll always start with, if you need a campaign, let's say I love Dove had a campaign that was targeted towards self-esteem for kids. I would be one to help Dove to pitch that campaign around.
Right. Okay.
Or if an artist has an album coming out, I saw on your list one of my favorite campaigns or a rollout was definitely Drake, Certified Lover Boy. I loved the entire thing from the heart haircut to just everything he was wearing leading up to the album. Everything.
That was hilarious. But that's a good way to do it, to give them an example, because I could tell people all day what it is I do, but then I just give them an example hey, you ever watch TV and this person is in LA and this person is in Miami, they're talking about something and there's a shameless plug there? That's what I do. That's generally what I tell people, instead of just, oh yeah, I do broadcast PR. So it's important to give them examples. People are more visual that way, but I have to go with y'all because on the other side, the flip side, I'm sure you guys have had some difficult interviews before. How do you handle that?
Honestly, I just wrap it up quickly. If I understand the energy that I'm giving is not being receptive, I'm okay, cool. And it's been like that for me for because I'm really new still. Yeah. So like interviewing like new rappers, and I'm like asking my thought-provoking deep questions, and they like giving me one-word answers. I'm like, after like the third question and it's the same, I'm like, okay, thank you for your time.
What's the quickest interview you ever had?
I want to say it was at the BET Hip Hop Awards. Like the red carpet for that. It was probably like 2 questions, and I was like, okay, cool. We're just gonna wrap it up here.
We gotta do better, y'all. We gotta do better.
I think it's I don't know, like, but I don't try to like continue to like poke the bear if I understand. It's like, okay, noted. And obviously it's like no shade to them, because like they could be nervous. It could be so many different factors, right. But it's like I just know when to pick up, I guess, on like a social cue.
Yeah. It's difficult because there's so many, you know, artists that don't have media training, and I could think of one. I'm not going to say her name, but she maybe after the interview. But you know, she makes really good music, but the other part is just not there as much, and fortunately, it doesn't hurt her brand too much. But it's kind of like, you know, have a good interview. Like people go and watch artist interviews now, you know, to get that insight of what, you know, they want to know about the person. It's not just about the music no more. People want to know about
it. Made me like,
I was like, I want to know the ins and out. Like, so my favorite people to interview, like, to talk about their craft are like actors and actresses. Like they talk about their craft in a way where it's like, damn, like you know, I'm like, whoa, like you just put me onto something new. Or even like old school, like not really like old school, or like pioneers in the rap game, you know, like they've given me like some of the best interviews, because it's like, again, it's like, I'm not like, it's much like in my real life, it's like I don't deal with too cool for school people. I hate like that. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't want to have to deal with talent like that too, because it's like it's okay to be excited and love what you do, like, or love your project, or you know.
Yeah, there's nothing like, let's say for example, there's nothing like this rapper has this like extremely impactful album or song or something like that, and then interviewing them, and they're just like, yeah, you know, it was cool. And it's just like, dog, you don't match the energy.
Yeah, but then on like the journalist side too, is like I try to do everything that I can to make them feel comfortable, because I know that there's a lot of people that don't trust the media, and it's like they have a reason. Like I understand that as well, because it is people that can like say mean things or like, you know, just be shady. So it's like I kind of can see it from both angles.
There was one particular instance where we had, what was his name? Uncle Joey from Full House, right? Dave Coulier. And there was a particular outlet, and this is something that all journalists should know. If you ain't recording your interview, you better act right, because you ain't gonna get it if you mess up. Somebody asked him about a relationship he had with Alanis Morissette, and I didn't know about that. I guess I was out the loop, and it made him kind of uncomfortable. They're like, oh, like I guess like, was that song about you the big one? And you know, he was uncomfortable, and they didn't record their interview. So guess what? They didn't get their interview. So you have to, as far as like, you know, trusting media, don't be out here just trying to, because we know the clickbait, you know, we know you're not going to get your interview, though. So yeah, I remember that. I'll never forget that one. But have you ever had any like really tough interviews to the point where it's just like, I can't do this?
Yeah, no, not yet. No? I've been blessed so far. Like I haven't had any bad interviews yet. It's, you know,
I was about to say, because
it's probably gonna come. It's gonna come eventually. I know, but again, you know, some of that, like I'm still kind of new in the space too, so I haven't. Interviews been really good, you know, and just insightful, and you know, talking to people that love what they're doing. Those are the best ones too, you know, and it's just getting a chance to see their creative process and stuff like that. I think that's dope. But I haven't had a bad interview yet.
Okay. What about the most memorable ones? Like, if you could think off the top of your head right now, what was the most memorable interview you've had so far?
Ooh. So for me, it was with Sway.
I love Sway, man. Shout out to Sway.
Yeah, shout out to
Legend.
Sway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it was just us, like, talking, and he said a lot of, like, he reaffirmed a lot of things in me that I didn't go in that interview for that, you know, but it was like, you know, they were like, you know, never give up your voice for a brand, like, or don't worry about the numbers, like, because you can put out content. And he was like, we've put out amazing content, like, obviously for things like MTV News and stuff,
Right.
and let them tell it because the numbers didn't do well. It wasn't impactful, but I know how much it impacted the culture.
Yeah.
Like, so that was just like reaffirming again to just like, you know, just that authenticity. I think that was like a big thing that I got away from that. It's like, you know, because it's like, again, it's like, it's things that you can do or opportunities that come up. But I'm like, but if I have to like get to a point where I can't be Shanique, then I don't want to do it. Like, I'm me before I'm working for any brand.
Right.
Like, so that was like stuck with me the most. And it was so cool because it was like a year before I was on his show for a project I was working on.
Nice.
And then a year later, I got to interview him. And he was like, yo, like, I don't like being interviewed, but you made me feel comfortable. And I was like, oh my gosh, like
this is
I grew up watching you.
Yeah.
Like,
How
you know?
was that?
Yeah, so
That's
that was
crazy.
like, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah. What about you?
It was probably the joint interview I did with Chance and the visual artist Nyla Opianga. She's from Gabon.
Okay.
And it was just cool, just them talking about how they connected, and then hearing like Chance is like 28 years old, man, but he talks like he's like 50.
Really?
You know, just he's well traveled, and just the things that interest him. It's just, you know, because I like talking to people too. Like, I like meeting new people, and I think people are interesting. And just, you know, when you see these people from, you know, surface level, and then you get a chance to talk to them, they're two, you know, totally different. It's just the visual artist to how wise she was, and you know her, you know, because I like writing about art too, you know that. So just, it was the perfect interview for me, getting a chance to hear these two people, how they create, and just the beauty of connection and stuff.
Yeah,
so
you just sit back and listen.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I thought it was
that's
fire.
what's up. I know myself, like, there's some interviews that I've seen, like, clients where I'm like, man, you killed it. What, do you have any, like, moments that you feel like an artist will go into an interview and they'll do shockingly better than you thought they would? Because that's important too. Like, it's almost like it's paying off. Do you have any of those moments?
Absolutely. My first client, second client that I worked with, artist Biffo, he's actually signed to 1017 as a producer. Okay. Now, when I first started working with him, he was one of the yes and no interviewers. And it took him a while to get out of just saying yes, no, and for sure. Those were his 3 words that he would just keep. It took a while, but we did Nightmare Radio. I met them at their grand opening, and when we connected, I'm like, I have a great artist. We were holding back from doing bigger interviews because he was just giving me the 3 words. So I was working with him towards that. When he got there, they made him feel super comfortable. They were laughing before they even started to record. They were just getting familiar with each other. So once they started to interview, he did great. And I'm like, where was this person 2 weeks ago?
That's it. That's important though. Like to be comfortable with people, to, you know, talk about, you know, their lives. People enjoy talking about, well, some people, most people enjoy talking about themselves and like what makes them different. And, you know, that's a really important thing to do. I kind of wanted to navigate to more so like a side of like a day in the life, because, you know, there's people that pay attention to y'all. What is like a day in the life of a journalist? Like, what do you have to do? Where does it start? Do you wake up in the morning and turn on TV? Like, do you go to social media? Where does that start?
So for me, it's like one thing that I had to learn in this big age is that starting my day and like jumping right into it is not it. Like, I have to get up in the morning, I have to do my meditation, I have to pray, and then that's when I go into it. Or I'll start with watching an interview. Sometimes I'll put on Sway in the morning and a story will come from there. But it's just I learned very quickly, blocking out an hour to myself before jumping into the madness, so to speak, is a game changer. And it's I'm able to just attack the day with just so much more clarity and so much more peace. So it's after I meditate, then I go through emails and send emails, and then it's
get a lot of them.
But then it's so weird because it's it's no typical day. It's because sometimes a story will come to me in the middle of the night, I'm listening to a song and I'm damn, I'm about to write about this, you know what I mean? Or
Can
I'm
you write this up by 7 in the morning, please? I hate that, man.
That's the thing is so I don't know, it's I just be trying to be on my own little vibe. I have to set the tone to write. And when I tell people that, sometimes they don't get it, and then one other thing is I have 2 specific days out of the week that I do interviews.
Okay.
So I'll block those days off to do interviews, and the other days it's I'm writing, or because I feel a lot of experiences as a writer just come from living life. So I try not to quote unquote take myself too serious. It's I just try to live life and go with the flow, but still make sure I'm responding to emails and things like that.
You're writing from your perspective, and you have to form perspective, and have that before you go into something really deep or something kind of lighthearted. What about you?
So for me, I know I like reading a lot of writers that I like Ernest Hemingway. I like James Baldwin. I read a lot of fiction stuff too, and because I enjoy the way that they write. So I try to read their writings and incorporate that in the way I write. So I try to read it the night before.
Really?
And then kind of her too, I might check my emails, or I check social media to see, if it might be a story. Because I do a lot of op-eds too, so I want to see if I can find something to write, or if there was something big in the news. I try to read a lot though, because when I read, I get better in what I do. So I read a lot of fiction stuff.
Steel sharpens steel.
Yeah. So that's kind of my process. It's fluid though. I do different stuff. Depending on the day. So
that's important to do. Now, Brianna, PR don't stop.
Not at all.
How do you begin that, your day? Because I know for me, man, I can tell you some stories, but how do you start?
Well, I'm a night person, so I like to try to get my day started the night before. No matter how long it takes, it helps me to get my morning started if I've done pretty much what I needed to do for the morning at night. So I spend a lot of my day researching as well and reading. If I want to pitch to somebody, I want to make it my business to know what type of writer they are, what's their style, who did they write for, how long have they been writing for them, their last few articles, just to get familiar with them. I don't want to go into a pitch blind and I'm pitching to someone who doesn't really care for pets, and then I'm going to pitch you.
Yeah, you got to know the beats.
Something about pets. So I always start off with getting as much research as I can about somebody for my pitch, sending emails all day, every day, all night. If a journalist emails me back, because I do have journalists that email me back at maybe 3 a.m. If I'm up, we'll have an email back to back at 3 a.m.
Start that thread. It's funny because what I tend to do is I like to read, if I'm on the PR side, I like to read journalists' work, and I'll commend them on I like that article because, they're always writing about people, but, very seldom people are reaching out and saying, oh, I like that article or whatever. So I'll be like, hey, I liked your work on XYZ. And I won't just do a recent one, and I'll really read it, and then, we'll go back and forth. And even if they don't or they're not completely sold on your artist or your client or whoever, you now form some type of rapport with them. So maybe one day they will write. That's happened to me millions of times, where it's just like, hey, I got this article, like, I'm not really. I'm like, all right, cool. I still love that article. Mm-hmm. It was still good, and now you have the contact. So that's important too, man, because I feel like so many people are just like kind of run and gun in the PR game. Like, hey, do you like my artist? No? All right, cool, thank you, bye. And never talk to them again. When really maybe you could have just had a little conversation with them. And, you gotta, not to say you have to stroke the ego of the journalist, but, you gotta have a conversation with them. That's how, we form relationships, so you could go back.
And the genuine relationships.
Yeah, I love that you say that.
People know if you're being genuine or not. And a lot of times if I pitch and they're not working on that at the particular moment, if they have that come up in a few months because I reached out to them and I kept in contact, you can't write about it right now. But you can
guess who they come into.
Yeah, 3 months later, she's like, "Oh, are you still working with this artist?" Well, I still, I'm working on this, and then now you have that coming up because I wasn't writing just to get my client featured. Like I want to build those relationships. We can both work with each other.
That's very
I
true,
love that you mentioned that, the genuine relationships.
Do you guys have relationships with like PR agencies and stuff like that where they constantly send you stuff?
Yeah, and my thing is like, again, like you can like tell the difference where it's like, so for me it's like I had to like learn, because I am a habitual people pleaser, but I'm in therapy like to work on that.
Shout out mental health.
Shout out to therapy. Yeah. Because like I've always been scared of like being a quote unquote villain or like letting people down. So it's like when I would get like emails, I would always respond. I would be like, oh no, I have to. And like even now it's like I still do respond. But, like, I could just tell the difference between someone who is, like, just saying things so that they can get, like, a story versus, like, people that are, like, truly interested in, like, yo, like, what are you working on? Or, like, what are the things that, like, make you the most happiest to write about? It's, like, I have, like, one publicist, like, and I'm going to shout her out. Her name is Naya, and she works for Edelman, and it's, like, I just know, like, she's always been at the forefront, like, no, like, I got to get black journalists on this. And I love her for that. It's like, and it's like, it's a consistent thing, whether it's a big name or, like, whether it's, like, I don't know. It's just always, like, that synergy. And, like, even when it's not even stories, she's like, girl, you were on my mind. Like, let's chat. That makes a difference, too.
That
like,
kind of stuff people will always think about. Like the times when you wasn't in business, when you guys were just talking.
Yeah.
That's so important.
Yeah, so when she sends stories, and even if I have editors that like a little leery, I go to bat because I'm like, I know like she's going to bat for me. So I like really, really appreciate that. And like those genuine relationships is like, because to me, it's like, I love people. Like, I love getting to know, like, what you like, what was your childhood like? Like, that's me. It's like, it's beyond just surface level. So, and that's, like, what I love about what I do is, like, being able to, like, talk to different people and learn their stories, learn what makes them happy, learn what they're passionate about. So, I just like that connecting factor. And then the stories are going to come regardless.
I have to ask because I touched on it earlier. Have y'all ever been burned? And it happens both ways because you have a relationship with, you said her name is Naya. Now, what if you had this really good relationship with Naya, or you had this really good relationship with a publicist, or you have a really good relationship with like some journalists, and they either write a bad story about your artist that you brought them, or like vice versa, where they send you something and it's just like, oh, this ain't it. What do you do? How do you still sustain that relationship, but it's bad? Like the artist is bad. The story sucks. Like that happens. How you guys handle that?
Honestly, like, so like I have like a client actually that I've like worked with on several stories, and I just don't like the fact that it's not a lot of black people centered, like, you know what I mean? And it's like I've grappled with like, oh man, like, is this gonna ruin our relationship and all the perks? But it's like, honestly, I don't care, like, in that sentiment, because it's like this is the truth, and my job as a journalist is to tell the truth. And you can tell the truth in a way that's not like demeaning or not hurtful or not like from ego or whatever. I think like that's a big thing of like going in. It's like you have to like, people have to remember like the job of a journalist is to be the voice of the people. So it might not be like the same, but like my biggest thing is like I will like, if I have a situation like that, I would like just alert them like this is gonna be an honest piece, like, you know.
I like that. I like that you said the truth.
That would scare me.
You said it so much better than what I would have said. It was like if the artist was bad, and in my brain I'm like, well, is the artist bad? Because I'm not gonna get upset with her for doing her job. Like if that's what she does. I'm not gonna be upset and like tarnish our personal relationship because of what we're doing for work. Right. If the artist is bad and it's her job to write about it, then I'm not gonna be upset. Yeah.
And Rihanna, you strike me as somebody that's very like, you have a lot of integrity. I know me personally, I wouldn't push somebody I don't believe in. It's very hard to sell somebody on something you ain't really buying yourself. So.
It is hard, but I had to come to a place where if you're being a publicist, I don't have to like your music, but there is an audience that does. I have to see your brand, your fan base, and what's working for you. So I have like a style of music. Like I'm really into Brent Faiyaz, Giveon. I really like the toxic male music right now.
Toxic male music. I guess
so what works for them, you know, is it may not work for other people. So if I'm not into your music, that doesn't mean that you don't have an audience.
That's true, because there are artists that like you said that I know are good at what they do. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
So and that's important in itself too. We gotta get some tips out here because y'all have a lot of gems that I know y'all are sitting on, but I'm gonna give y'all three gems that you would leave somebody with that's either wants to start in PR or wants to start writing or wants to write for an outlet, write for themselves, whatever the case may be, or is trying to stop doing PR for themselves and go to an agency or vice versa. And we'll start with you, Brianna. What's the like 3 tips you would give somebody that's trying to break into this industry? Because it's tough.
First one is definitely ride your own wave. I was in college looking at one point in time, I was like obsessed with just other publicists. Like I would follow them, see what they're doing, how they're doing it, what they're wearing. I was like, so this is what it needs to be like. And then I really quickly realized that doesn't work for everybody. Right. The same as going to school. It doesn't work for everybody. You have to find what works for you and do it exactly what works for you. The second one will be like trial and error. I have failed and I'm not going to stop. Just keep going. Yeah. Journalists are going to say no. People are going to say no. Don't get offended. Like that just comes with the territory. You
Failure
have to,
means you're trying.
It means you're trying. I have so many like rejection emails, especially when I first started. My pitching was terrible. I had to, that could be the third one. You have to know yourself, like measure yourself, keep trying to grow. You're never going to be like completely at the top. For me, even if I feel like I'm at the top, I feel like I need to just keep going. Just keep going higher up.
Yeah, that's great. Sly?
So, yeah, kind of, I guess I could piggyback off, well, number one, you want to keep going. Because, again, you know, I started this saying that I was doing this for free for like 7 years. And she talking about rejection emails. I used to not hear nothing back from people. Just I would respond, you know, no be like, hey, whatsoever. I do this, can I write for you guys? And I just won't hear nothing, you know. So when I started getting rejections, to me, that was a step up. Like, oh, shit, they're responding. And then after a little while, you know, it would be yeses. And then it got to a point where now people are reaching out to me to write stuff. Ooh. So it's like, you know, you got to, one, keep going. And then two, you know, don't be afraid to hit the word no because you're going to hear no a lot. Journalism and PR too. So just, you know, and always try to get better, you know, because I think just being satisfied about what you do, you can be good at something, but you don't ever want to be stagnant. You want to try to keep getting better at your craft, you know, learn from different people, take different things. And I think that's just important, you know, to just, you know, just try to be better.
Yeah.
All right. So number one, be authentic. people are always going to gravitate to like who you are. So don't ever try to like, I feel like this is an industry where it could be very easy to lose yourself and like try to blend into what everybody else is, but it's like, no, like you bring something valuable to the table, so always keep that. 2 would be create for yourself. Like, don't always like think about like, so for instance, like the Will Smith debacle, it's like everybody's talking about that, but you could have stories inside of you that you know need to be told. Like, tell them. Find a platform, and even if you can't find a platform, write them for yourself, you know. And then lastly would just be to really like envision the life that you want for yourself and see yourself there. Like, it could happen. Like, I'm huge on manifestation and speaking life into myself. It's like everything I've written up until this point has happened, and then even bigger. So I'm like, okay, God, like I just trust you. Like whatever you want me to do, I'ma just do it. You know. And yeah, I think that would be it. Okay. I think those are
that's
3.
That's really good. You said something really important. Is that like, you know, you have to manifest it. Dame Dash said, "Dreaming is free, so why dream small?"
Yeah.
You know, and that's really, really true. Well, I appreciate y'all being on the show. I really, really I've been wanting to do this kind of episode for a long time, because it's like, it's 2 people from opposite sides, but they work together all the time. PR is so important to me because, you know, it's what I do, and that's kind of how I jumped in the media game. And, you know, journalism, like corresponding, I've done that too. You know, I've had my own outlet where we wrote on stories and stuff. So it's really dope. Like, both of these industries are really near and dear to my heart. But whether y'all, because we're going to have the lower thirds with all y'all, you know, Instagrams and all that stuff. But whether it's, you know, you trying to get on Essence and, you know, hit up Oak, or, you know, Revolt, hit up Sly, or you trying to get your single off the ground, album, you know, hit up my girl Rihanna. But I appreciate y'all being on For All We Know, and I usually close it out with, you know, be yourself, because everyone else is taken. We out.
I love that.